You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
And today on our Mindset and Motivation Monday, I've got a really fun show. This topic actually came about from a reader question, or I should say a listener's question. Her name is Jen, and she wrote in, "It sounds as though you've truly mastered productivity in your life. I have so many things I want to be doing in my life, focusing on my art teaching job, building a side yoga business, working out regularly, reading books, self-development, and taking time for hobbies, and of course, spending time with family and friends. We all know it can be overwhelming to fit it all in. Could you give an example of your typical day or a couple days?" And then asking essentially how I make it all work. Well, I do want to let you know right off the bat is that when I'm talking about where I am right now in my life from where I was previously, and it's night and day. Before, I lived a life of chaos. I lived a life of basically anger, poor mood, anxiety, really just overall irritability. And a lot of that came from really not knowing myself, really not knowing what I wanted out of life. And so I was wandering around aimlessly. And of course, I was a very sick kid. I mean, that's just the way it was. And when everyone tells you that it's all in your head or that there's nothing they can do for you, it leaves you in a very depressed state. So when your body is just totally wiped out, your immune system shut down, and you're being told left and right that there's most likely no way for you to recover, obviously your body's depressed and your brain's depressed. So what I had to do was I had to just start to look towards other people out there who had a different outlook on life. I didn't know if I would get well. Something deep down inside me told me that I would, but no one could provide those answers. So I went to books and I just started to read. And a lot of those books that I did read, of course, they were on nutrition and they were on wellness and they were on alternative healing and all these different types of practices, of course. Over the years, I've read thousands and thousands of wellness books. I mean, I read 200 to 250 books a year on average. I've been doing that for 15 years straight, and before that I read as well. I just don't even include that as much. But what I've mainly started to go into more of is more of the psychology part of it, and really look at why sometimes we can be doing everything right for our body in terms of trying to get well, but in the end it doesn't happen. And that's because our brain, our mind controls a lot of how our body actually feels. And that has to do more with how your psychology, your thinking, affects your physiology. And they talk about it all the time. The true great motivational masters, the people they'll show you how you actually can change your physiology, meaning like pulling your shoulder blades back, lifting your chest up, breathing in through your nose, and that changes your psychology. It makes you less anxious, makes you less depressed, all of those things. Well, same thing psychologically. You have to be thinking, you have to be in the right mindset. So we're talking about time management. And Jen, I'm going to talk to you specifically. It sounds like you are where I was maybe, let's say 10 years ago or so. It's like you're just trying to find yourself. And finding yourself is not an easy thing. And it's also not something that you should ever put a timeline on where you need to figure it out tomorrow. So even though I feel like I'm in a really good place right now, I'm still on the journey. I'm still figuring it out. I have a journal that I write in where I talk about, all the different things that I still want to accomplish, the things that I want to do, the things that I want to tweak right now in my life. Right now, everything's not perfect. A lot is going absolutely great, but there are still some things that I would like to tweak. And I just thought I'd give you some examples. So some of the things that, one of the things when you're trying to figure out where your life should be headed, you just basically want to have just 2 pages in front of you. On the left page, you want to write down all of the things that basically when you're doing them, time flies by. You literally could do them all day. You forget to eat. You forget to, look at your phone, get on social media, all of those things. And it doesn't have to be work. It could be anything. What are those things that you love doing? Maybe it's hiking outside. Maybe it's going out for a coffee or tea with a friend. Write all of it down. But then, write in some of those work things or hobbies that you love to do as well. And then on the other sheet of paper, you want to write all the things that you dread doing, that stress you out. And you want to put those on the right-hand column. So I'll just give you a few of my examples. And, for me, I'm going to talk more about kind of like the work ones, but, in terms of my personal life, it's spending time with my family. I love doing those specific things. It's time out in nature. It's time walking. It is absolutely having my own quiet time, doing my own exercise, without a doubt. But some of my work things that I just thought I'd share with you, because I do a lot, for my work, is I love to do video shoots where I'm teaching on video. I also love to speak in front of people. I love doing podcasts. The podcast that you're listening to right now is a passion of mine. I love doing it. I love mentoring and coaching and consulting other health businesses, basically people who are trying to reach more people who have really a great service or product. I love coaching them. I love teaching them, and I want to get them to take themselves to that next level. Not in terms of finances, that can be part of it, but really in terms of helping them achieve the life that they've always wanted, whether they're a personal trainer, a yoga instructor, they're a naturopathic doctor, a medical doctor who wants to do more natural-based medicine, any of those things. That's just what I'm trying to do. Maybe someone's trying to publish a book. I love to write. Collaborate with other people within the industry and create things that neither one of us could do individually. But when we come together, we create this, beautiful thing that a lot of people will benefit from. One thing I should say that a lot of people wouldn't know maybe about me is I love to design. I really do love everything design-wise. I love in terms of like a page layout for a book that I might be writing. I love being a part of that. I love just design in general, architecture, whatever it might be. And that doesn't mean I'm ever going to be an architect. And that's why I want to, Jen, pull this next point in with you, is you have to understand everything that I listed right there all has to do with my one main passion, which is teaching people about health, wellness, weight loss, and living longer, but also a more enriched life. The only reason why I believe I talk about wellness and weight loss and any of those things in general is to get people to a point in their life where then they can start loving life again. They can start really enjoying it. That to me is what it's all about. But you can't get there, and I know this from personal experience, you simply can't get there. You can't get to that point in your life where you're like, you know what? I'm good. Everything is good. I'm happy, until your body is where it needs to be. And that's why I have this little slogan on the Cabral concept where it's change your body, change your life. But you don't really get to change your life until you change your body, both mentally and physically. And that's such a huge part of it. Now, that's my one column where it makes me happy. Time flies by. I love those things. Now, a lot of things on my list, other people would absolutely hate. But now I'm the opposite, right? So anything that has to do with like a lot of meetings, a lot of emails, a lot of like answering customer service emails, anything to do with like accounting, paying bills, calling companies, any of that type of stuff, placing ads. I don't like all of those specific things. Now, some people love that. They absolutely do. And I have fantastic people in my office, fantastic managers, and they're great at those things. Can I do them? Yes, but I shouldn't be because I don't enjoy them, and it's just some of those things I have to. It's just part of my job, right? So I don't mind them, but they're not my thing, right? That's not where my passion lies. That's not where my energy comes from. So Jen, what I'd like you to do is kind of make your own list, because I'm going to be honest. If you have an art teaching job and you also want to build a yoga business, doing the two of them and being really great at both is going to be a challenge. So what I would say is this. If you love yoga, it might not have to be a business. And so it's something to think about. So because sometimes when you love something and then you try to make money from it as well, it can take away some of that sweetness. And so you just want to think about that. And the other part I would say is this, is that if you do want to turn it into a business, then you really have to go, full board. You've got to really tackle it and dive into it. But for right now, you can really accomplish all of the things that you're looking to. And what I would say is this, is that reading books, working out regularly, self-development, that also has to do with reading books. Like, look at all of these things. And even, the yoga business, like, why not, instead of trying to open up your own practice, which is going to be a lot of overhead, all of those things in the beginning, is just start for the first 12 to 18 months or 2 years by working as a yoga practitioner at another studio. and learning by experience, getting to teach, getting to connect with other people. Plus, you don't want to dive right into it. And if you say like, well, I really do love this. And then also understanding that you might really love being a yoga instructor, but the business side of it's completely different. The business side of it means you're going to be hiring other instructors, potentially working with a landlord, a lease, hiring front desk people, setting up online website, all of that stuff. But you might just love the practitioner part of the business. So why not, instead of building a side business, is actually become a yoga practitioner at other studios or just one studio and get to teach after school, after your art job is done, and teach 1 or 2 classes every single day. Or maybe you just teach them on the weekends. And that's a great side business right there. Your risk is much less and you get to enjoy it. You get to turn off the lights at night and not have to worry about, all the overhead and anything that go wrong with the business. Now, the working out part, the reading books, let me just tell you what I do. Is that I truly started to master life when I got my sleep back in order. So I was a chronic insomniac until about 28 years old. And then what I finally understood was being able to regulate my nervous system, because I am a, go, type A type personality that I have to keep in check. If you know Ayurvedic medicine, I'm the Vata Pitta body type. I am just go too hard and too deep, and I need to learn how to turn that off, and I did. I finally learned at that time through being able to actually be aware of my thoughts, start to be able to control the thoughts that were going on in my head, and then also use really valuable nutritional supplements that allowed me at nighttime to turn off that fight or flight sympathetic nervous system, go, and actually get into a sleep cycle. And I've talked about this before on previous podcasts. But once I did that, I could start going to bed around 10 p.m. and I could start waking up around 5:30 or so every single day. So 9:30 or so, 10 o'clock at night, wake up around 5:30. What that did, that allowed me a couple hours before my work to actually get all the things that I wanted to do in my life done. And that's a huge recommendation for other people, is that they're asleep, right? So the rest of the world hasn't even woken up yet. You can get so much accomplished, right? So Jen, if you're looking to read a book, or say like, how do you find the time to read? Well, I have an hour at lunch and I can walk, I can read, I could listen to podcasts. I have an extra hour or 2 in the morning. I can read then, and you could do the same. You could work out then. You could work on your hobby then. Like, we don't need all this time. A lot of times we're trying to figure out, like, where do we get all this time from? It's not, you don't pull it out of thin air. You actually sit down. It's funny because when I'm teaching people time management, I actually break down my day. I show them how I break down my day. Essentially, I live by these like 45-minute blocks, and every 45 minutes it essentially switches into essentially a new activity. And what that does, it allows me to really look at my entire day. And if you do that, if you start keeping track, I do this with everybody in my practice as well, you start to look at not only your day and how you're using it, but a lot of people are just wasting time. Most people, like, let's just say you're commuting to work on a subway, a commuter rail, whatever it might be, on a train. That's where you're doing your continuing education. That's when you're reading. When I commuted from Providence, Rhode Island to Boston for 4.5 years straight, it was an hour ride both ways. I read books the entire way. That is how I started to get into more and more reading. It was very simple. That's when I got it done. I couldn't do much else. Now, what could I do? I could have played on my phone. I could have been on Facebook. I could have been doing whatever. I said, no, this is my time to educate myself. So you essentially just have to look at your day. And it's really not about management, I would say, of your time. It's more about integrating your day. It's about doing all the things that you want to do, because there is time for everything. There really is. Like, if you're up for 16 hours of the day, look at that. You might be working for 8 to 10 hours of that. Okay. So what are you doing with the other 6 hours to 8 hours of that day? I mean, that's a lot of time. In 6 hours, you certainly should be able to read for a half hour. I always tell people, if you read for a half hour a day, you're going to finish 1 to 2 books per month, without a doubt. Without a doubt, you'll be able to do that. And if you have that 6 hours a day, you're going to find a time to get in that 1 hour, that half hour to a 1 hour workout. And it could be at home. And then, of course, now, again, socializing with friends and family. Pick one night a week. It doesn't have to be every night. So remember, the things that you love don't have to be done every single day. Like, when I look at my list of all the things that make me happy, all the things that I like to do, I don't get to go out hiking every single day or every single week. Maybe I get to do it once a month, but that's something that's enjoyable that I look forward to. Remember, if I were to hike every single day, it might lose its appeal. So it's like that one time a month when I get to do it, it's amazing, right? Because I never get to do this. And even when I say, like, my work, like, oh, I love doing video shoots, and I love speaking, and I love, designing those types of things. Well, that for me is basically a once a month or twice a month thing maximum. I only speak about once a month to a seminar, to a conference, and then for a video shoot, it's once to twice a month for about 3 hours or so at a time. And so, when you look at that, I'm not doing it every single day, but I'm getting to do all the things I love scheduled out throughout that month. So the last thing I'll leave you with is this, is that all of our time is not our time, right? So when we look at it, like for that 16 hours a day that we're up, I have to make sure that I'm also caring for my family, that I'm caring for all of the people in my practice that I meet with for all of those appointments, that I'm taking care of the 20 individual employees that I have in my business. So that's not necessarily my time. However, how I look at it is this, it's all part of my life collectively, right? These are all the things that make up me. So when some of the things that I might be doing in my life aren't my favorite, like, emails or, those types of things, it's not that it's an issue. It's just that I understand that I can't do a lot of the other things in my life either without doing some of the things that I don't necessarily love. And that's what the great Tao was all about, right? That's the ebb and flow to life. That's the yin and yang, is understanding that you always have to take the good with the bad. And I start to look at things that there isn't even ever really that bad anymore, meaning there are events that come up that are not good, that are bad. But in everyday life, how you have to look at it is that I understand now that every single thing that I do isn't going to be my favorite, but that truly allows me to then enjoy when I get to do those things that are my wheelhouse. That is what provides me with the energy, that provides me with the drive. So hopefully that starts to make a little bit more sense. And what I would say first, if you can take one tip away, is start to wake up an hour or two before you actually do have to leave for work. When you do that, you'll find that you have more time right away, and start to watch less TV at night, start to use less social media. All of those things will really give you back so much more of your day. Start to look at it. Remember, if you're working from 9 to 5, what are you doing from 6 to 8? Right? I know that you might be commuting from the 8 to 9 or whatever it is, or even what are you doing from 6 to 9 when you start? And then when you get out at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, what are you doing until 9 o'clock at night? That's 3 more hours. You have 3 in the back end and 3 at the end of the day. Look at those hours. That's 6 hours right away that you can take advantage of. 6 hours. I don't even know what I would do with all that time. That's a lot of time. So you have to look at it that way. So Jen and everyone else who listened today, I truly appreciate you tuning in. Please do let me know if this wasn't deep enough, if you'd like to get more out of how I schedule things, how I look at this philosophy, and I'd be happy to do that. Thank you once again for tuning into the Cabral Concept. I want to sincerely thank you for your support of this podcast. I couldn't do it without you, and I mean that. I truly do. I also want to make sure you knew that we now have multiple ways for you to find your answers to the most difficult health, wellness, weight loss, and anti-aging questions. You can find podcast-specific topics like thyroid, adrenal, hormones, sleep, digestion, Ayurveda, and many more at stevencabral.com/podcasts that will then link you to your favorite Apple, Spotify, and other podcast players. Plus, all new podcasts and weekly exclusive video content is being added to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Stephen Cabral. And that's Stephen with a PH. Head on over and subscribe so that you don't miss any of the exclusive content. Lastly, if you've ever found any of my podcasts or books to be helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a review on iTunes or your favorite media player for the podcast. Rating and subscribing to the YouTube and podcast allow me to reach more and more people and help spread my mission of healing throughout the world. Thank you again for being a part of this movement.